Welcome and welcome to the season finale of the Me Virtual Experience Maker series. We thought it'd be fun to bring back all the artists that we've interviewed in this series and catch up with them and find out what they've been up to and what they're planning for the new year. Because let's face it, 2021 has been a marathon for all of us. And it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon, at least for us in Asia, actually around the world too. Lots of ups and downs and fits and starts. And just when we thought we were just getting through to the finish, comes another bump. But, for us in the events world, we have to really learn to keep going with the flow and tap into our creativity to seize the moment. We have an exciting program planned for the next 90 minutes. So we're going to start off with our night owls, the people who keep us alive at night, even though we cannot get together physically. And then we're going to feed our souls with love and food. And we're going to feed our curiosity with a conversation with actor, producer, entertainer Hosan Leong. And then we're going to end with a conversation with someone who's been somewhat of a personal hero to me at this time. And it's Ong Wee Min, who's Vice President, Conferences and Exhibitions of Marina Bay Sands. So watch out for that. And I hope you stay with us through the 90 minutes. But before we begin, let's get to know you in the audience and how you're feeling at this time of the year. We should be celebrating, but how are we feeling at this moment? We're gonna do a couple of polls. So let's trigger the poll. There's poll one, which is about how relieved are you that 2021 is nearly over? For me, I know I can't wait to see the back of it. There's a bit of anticipation about 2022. And the second poll is, do you think that virtual will remain part of events in 2022? Yes, for sure. B, I like to think so, but hybrid's still too costly to make economic sense. Or three, if I could, I'd go physical only. So send in your answers and then we'll come back to the results later on. But remember, keep that chat active, ask questions of our artists, and share your own ideas and plans for the new year because this is a celebration of creativity and it's a collaborative exercise. Now let's hear from the person whom I had the pleasure to work with in kicking off this unique and important series for the events industry. Right, I've always been a big believer in creating unique, quality, relevant content for communities. And I kind of found a kindred spirit in this person. Vimal Gangadine, who's the CEO of GAFME, who is an extraordinary entrepreneur and an industry leader. Please welcome Vimal. Hey Vimal, how are you?
Hi, Sihun. I'm
All
good,
right.
thanks.
So you are in quarantine, well, you're in stay home notice right now.
Stay home notice. There you go.
How fun is that? But what was it like traveling again? I mean, I remember, I think you went home to Mauritius, right?
That's correct. So it's been like what, 2 years, around 2 years. I think like everybody else, I didn't travel, right? So my wife and two daughters. So we went back to Mauritius. So it was great, reconnecting with friends, family. I think that's what we're all craving for, and having some time off and doing other things. So it was great to be back and have some good time off. I would say, yeah.
Yeah, it's great to see people traveling out there because I was with a friend in Paris too, and he's an investment banker. And he went to Mauritius despite all his friends telling him not to. And he's now returned to Paris, and he says that he's so glad he went because he had such a fantastic trip, and we all need to recharge. So, do you feel kind of recharged to take on the new year?
Very much so.
Because it's gonna be, another challenging year ahead, right? And
I think so. I think
so
so.
was the traveling process as painful as you had kind of feared it would be?
Yes and no, I would say. The actual process itself was actually pretty straightforward, right? But it was all the thought around it, the whole stress around it that made it all worse. Like when we went back, it was just mandatory for all travelers to do a PCR test. And we were like, okay, we're going to be stuck at the airport for like 3 hours or so. We were out like within half an hour, right?
Right.
And it was just smooth sailing, right? But
Yeah.
then while we were in Mauritius, then Omicron was new. There was this whole stress around it, like would the borders be closed because South Africa had just shut down and Mauritius is not too
Yeah.
far away. So it's just this whole thing around it. But the actual travel itself, plane, airports, and all that, I
Mm.
think everything is being put into place to
Yeah.
facilitate things. Yeah.
I find it quite similar to pre-game jitters, like you're about to play a big sport, and then you always have that pre-anxiety, and perhaps that's the kind of pre-game anxiety that people have when they are starting to talk about, when they started thinking about let's go virtual, let's do hybrid, right? Maybe those were the jitters, but once you do it, you find that it's not really as hard as you imagine. Do you think that there is a parallel between organizing virtual
Yeah, I think
events?
so. I think so. It's always the fear of the unknown, right? So especially last year for virtual events, I would say virtual experiences, should I call that? Everybody, there were camps like, oh, it doesn't work, it works, but it really didn't matter, right? It's just that everybody had to do it for whatever purposes, right? And then what we've seen with our clients itself is like once they started getting on board, uh, it wasn't number one as bad as they would have thought. It wasn't number two as difficult as they would have thought. And from then on, it's always been okay. We've learned this. We've done this. This worked. This doesn't work. Let's scrap that. Never ever do that again. And let's continue doing what works. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so personally, I went to the US and I attended two physical events, one in Miami and one in Fort Lauderdale. And the excitement of people being together again in a physical event is unbelievable, right? So as we move and we hope we can move into a physical world, what role do you think virtual will play in this scenario? And how will GEFME help the industry to kind of navigate this move from virtual to physical?
So I think everybody is just craving to go back to physical, right? So that's the first thing, right? And there's going to be like conferences, exhibitions specifically, partner meetings, events, sales meetings would all come back to. There's that desire for it to come back to physical, but then next year, as what you mentioned, I think it's still probably going to be challenging with different things continuing happening, right? So I think there's going to be that middle ground, and that's where then we call that hybrid. Events are going to come back, physical are going to come back, but then it's going to be hybrid with that digital component still being there. But then, more importantly, I think consumer behaviors have changed. So now there's a class of people who would love to go to the US to attend a great conference with great speakers. But now you don't have to travel, let's say from Asia, from Singapore, all the way to the US. But then you can just simply attend it. And in fact, you can just simply attend the live session of the speaker that you want to, and then maybe even interact with the speaker. So that's what, in a way, virtual has transformed at the same time. So I don't think it's really like, for example, virtual going away because I think that's here to stay. But then physical is a premium, and in
Right.
between we're gonna have
And
hybrid.
so
And
it's a
that
question
gave
of,
me,
so it's a question of how
yeah,
you kind of use virtual to enhance and not
there you
actually
go.
complement to me, but it's to kind of boost your program, less complementary but more enhancement. Now talk
Yeah.
about this series that that you kind of originated, right? And you launched GEFME Studios and you develop live and on demand content. Why did you feel that an event tech company like yours had to develop original content for the industry?
Okay, so two reasons. Number one is really because we felt that was missing. That's what we were talking about, like the fear of the unknown, right? Organizers out there feeling jittery about how to go about with their own experiences. So we wanted to bring in positive stories out there, and that's why I think it's been a great journey here. We've been hearing so many stories from the artists like who've innovated, right, in the face of the unknown, and then uh, tried, failed, and then succeeded in some cases with the experiences. So we wanted to bring these up front. So that's one. But I think secondly, we wanted to do an original show itself because I think that's the future of B2B marketing. That's the new way of doing marketing. So there's this big talk that marketing now is moving towards like companies are becoming media companies. And I think events can play a big role here in enabling that. Because when you're creating an event, what you're really creating is really content. And guess what? It's original content. And you can imagine like, and that's what companies like today, big companies like Salesforce, they've launched something called Salesforce Plus. But that's really what they call a Netflix for business content with
Right.
different shows happening. And that was our way of showing, hey, that's possible. We've sometimes even limited budget, right?
Right. I mean, events, have always been intrinsically in the business of communication. So you need content for a communications company. Now, you've powered a lot of events this year, whether it's virtual, hybrid. We're going to show some of the events that you've powered. Can you name three characteristics of the successful events that delivered both commercially as well as in terms of customer experience? What were the three common factors you think? And this was some
Doing
of the
any,
events that you powered.
that's correct. So here there's
Yeah.
like
What were
yeah,
the three
festival.
common factors?
So number one is really having a customer centric mindset, right? Really catering for the audience. I think just now we saw the example of FinTech Festival. So that event was meant to be, I mean, was a hybrid event, but it ended up being pretty much almost virtual because of the different restrictions that were into place. And I mean, that was an event with tens of thousands of concurrent viewers logging in over a period of 5 days, hundreds of speakers, so tons of content. But I think what was clear is, in so much that there was great content there, nobody would ever sit down at their computer for 5 days, 8 hours, 7 hours, watching everything back to back. So one of the things that they did in here was to make sure that as and when a session was over, it was made available on demand. So
Right.
in that way, then people could build their own experiences when coming to watch. So you could watch something live, or you join live, and then you watch a session that you would have missed. So I think really catering for the audience itself. So that
Right.
has helped. That was just an example. Number two, I think, is the element of novelty, right? We talk about Zoom fatigue. In fact, we can talk about fatigue of everything else, right? But bringing in an element of novelty in your event, and here that cuts across like virtual,
Okay.
physical, hybrid. In the virtual space, like just an example, what we've seen is like sometimes spatial chat where people move around, they can see who else is around there in a virtual world, and then they can talk, they can see each other. Whenever
Okay.
these was launched, I think that has been pretty cool to see.
All right.
And
So
then
so
number
basically
three,
basically kind of allowing your audience to, create their own customer experience, to kind of watch the content as and when they like it, right? So
yes,
what was the third characteristic?
I think that's just a good old one. Great content, right?
Okay,
Great
all right,
content and
great content. Okay, so Vimal, to wrap up, as we say goodbye to 2021 and welcome 2022, what are you most excited? Like, quick answer. What are you most excited about?
personally travel.
And having just come back, you need to travel again. What are you most
Yeah.
apprehensive about?
Again, related to that, I think overreaction to variants.
It seems governments are more alarmed than human beings. What new tech are you most watching in this space?
There's just a whole buzzword around it right now, but really, metaverse.
Yeah.
Very
Well,
excited with that.
we have to unpack all this sometimes these buzzwords, right? And then figure out what it
Yeah.
really, really means. But as a big concept, it is something out there. And everybody should read the book, Neil Stephenson's book, Snow Crash, where he actually coined the term metaverse. So, to understand that. Okay. What advice do you have for event professionals to face the year ahead? Just one piece of advice.
Embrace digital. Things are not going to be the same as back in 2019. Don't expect it to be the same next year. So I think digital plays a big role there. So I think embrace change and embrace digital. Yeah.
Well, so brave new world. So thank you, Vimal, and I hope you are right at the end of your stay home, and then you can come out into Singapore now and enjoy
Now, one
the
more day
rest
to
of
go.
the. One more day to
One more
go.
day to go. Yeah.
Damn, great. Well, enjoy the rest of the holidays, and let's catch up for a bite. Bye, Vimal.
Cool. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
you.
you. Great to see you. All right, now we move on to our two night owls and how they managed to keep the dance and music alive through the pandemic, and they are both extraordinary stories in their own right. So, interestingly, We had the DJ one with Aldrin, who was our very first guest. And did you know he's also the composer of the series soundtrack, and which you just heard, which you will hear again, because it's so good. So can we play the soundtrack, please? All right, do we want to hear that soundtrack again? Let's play the soundtrack, guys. That soundtrack which Aldrin composed specially for this series. Just to set us in the mood for the first session. But before we do that, let's do a recap of episode 1 with DJ Aldrin, where he spoke about how he got into live streaming. How did you get started onto the DJ streaming?
I was a little late into the game because I saw a lot of international DJs that were already getting into that whole live streaming thing. And after a while, I figured, okay, I kind of have to jump on the same bandwagon, because if you want to maintain some presence out there, you need to still connect with your audience. That is the only way at that point of time. And also, I guess I was kind of edged on by a couple of friends and supporters, clubbers that told me, hey, when are you going to do it?
Yeah, and we're bored at home and we're like, dance to your music, right? Well, he said he was a bit late in the game, but he certainly made up for it because he's done several since then. And now we move on to Audrey Lim, our next guest. And she was our last guest in episode 8. And she spoke about how she took back the nights. And here's a recap of that episode, a brief highlight. So let's play a couple of short clips here. All right. So
this is one of the features that we have in the world. We decided to build a public transport system. So you could beam yourself up from level 1 to level 2 and get on the train. And again, this is like a little splash of the world that we've created. This is one of the 3 stages. The diamond structure is our beacon stage. So you can see all the 5 screens, and you can see in the center area, that silver mound, that's where the performance avatars are going to be. So we use a little bit of motion capture in that video as well, so you could be aware of who you're watching on that screen, and how when they interact, you can actually see the little guy, the little fella, move his hand and gesture the same way.
So Audrey, good to see you in the studio. And I'm glad you got the memo, because we're all kind of color matched. But great to have you back, and thank you for joining us in this
Thanks
season
for having
finale.
us.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the pace. We're going to start out with rapid fire, okay?
Let's do it.
So I want really quick answers to my questions.
All right.
One word to describe 2021, Audrey.
Regenerative.
Hard.
Very good. Okay. What worried you at the beginning of the pandemic that didn't turn out to be such a big worry after all?
Whether I could finally afford to stop being a parasitic adult and get my own place.
Okay. Oh, she got her own place. Regenerative.
Nothing.
Oh, okay. I like the fact that you didn't worry about anything and you just kind of went with the flow. Okay, so looking forward, one word to describe 2022.
I want to say ascendant, because we're so far down. There's only one direction.
Okay, ascendant.
Hopeful.
Hopeful. Okay, all right. So let's start with Audrey, right? And we go back to your episode, which was called Bringing Life Back to Dance. And you certainly brought life to our series. And there's a summary of your episode actually in the Get Me blog. And these were the tips that you shared, with your audience. And we'll share a slide with the tips. Would you like to add another tip to that list? So you said basically be open-minded. You said you had to do more collaborations. you had to be creative and push boundaries, and then you had to create your own opportunities. Is there another tip you want to add to the list?
I think at this point of time, looking at how nothing much have changed.
Status quo?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think most importantly it would be stay positive.
All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree. But you have stayed positive because since we spoke, you continue to do live streaming, right? You've done a few live streams and you even entered a competition.
Yeah.
Right? So let's play Audrey's track where he entered the competition. Let's play
Ooh.
that. And so tell us about this competition. You came in.
Shy of third, fourth. Fourth.
Yay!
Hey,
well done.
Yeah.
The most important thing is showing up and taking part, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. So you entered a competition and you continue to do live streaming, right?
Yeah, I did a couple of live streams after we spoke the last time. Yeah, and I also actually did a lot of work. Not a lot, but I started to do more work with ad agencies, music composing for
Fun.
ads. Yeah.
Was that different?
It was different. I did some for
Yeah.
KFC and I did one for Mandai, the big revamp.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a new thing that has come up since the
Yes,
pandemic,
yeah.
right? That's
So
great.
yeah, I'm not
Okay.
complaining.
And this weekend you are hosting a festival. So let's show the audience this festival and everybody tell us
Yeah.
about it and why we must join. There we go, Legacy.
Yes, the Legacy Festival. Yeah, so I think they've been doing this for the third year running now. It's like a year-end music. The first one was live, I mean in person, and then of course last year was virtual, and this year again. And so this year is my first time joining them, so
Okay.
I'm quite excited about that.
And it's virtual? Is
It's
there
virtual.
a bit no physicality at all?
No, but my set was kind of pre-recorded a couple of weeks ago at Sentosa.
All right.
Yeah, so
Right.
southernmost point of intercontinental
Yeah,
Asia.
I think I've been to that point,
Yeah.
and you put your foot in the sea and then you
Yeah.
go, oh yeah, I was at the southernmost point. Okay. So Audrey, you were our last guest, so kind of fitting to have you and the first guest join us
Again.
today. Yeah. And we wrapped up episode 8 like 3 days before your November 5th event. And I just
Yes.
want to play a trailer of your November
cool.
5th event to share the audience. Yeah. So how was the event? It was your 4th event. You must have learned a lot,
Whew.
How was it?
Heaps. I've learned a lot of what not to do. I think that would be the most important. And it was what we were hoping for, I think. It wasn't perfect. I don't think it's going to be perfect if it's such a brand new thing. But it was important that we tried it out. At least we know roughly where the booby traps are for next time. And we know a little bit better what to improve on for the next
So
round.
what's the first thing that you must not do?
Do not trust that someone else has eyes on a project. If you are taking charge of something, make sure that you are looking at it and don't just assume that, oh, no, like someone else will be taking care of it. So one of the big problems that happen whenever you've got a large team, right, is who is coming back and giving information to whom.
Right.
So I think that was one of those. But then again, this is not specific to entertainment. It's not specific to music. It's just in a large project.
Okay, so basically you don't take your eye off the ball.
Pretty
right?
much.
Okay, all right. So now both of you are night owls. Am I right? So
Mhm.
it's very good
For
to
sure.
have you here in the studio so early.
Yeah.
What events have you both got planned for the year end? Anything?
I'm probably going to be hanging out at home because that's how you can get the most number of people with the current 5 guests. There's no point going anywhere else because TikTok 10:30, not
Yeah.
quite countdown, but
Okay.
We do what we can.
Home celebration.
Yes.
I
No
know.
idea.
Audrey, you actually had a booking. I
I
remember you
had
were
a
so
booking.
excited. You told
Yeah.
me I have a booking for
Yeah.
New Year's Eve, right?
Yeah, but yeah, that's definitely not gonna happen.
All right. Okay. So, but
You
we
can come to
still-
my house. We'll party at home.
But at least, Audrey, you had the opportunity to travel to Mykonos. Can you believe he traveled to Mykonos over the summer? And it must have been great to be, in that island where things were normal and dance clubs. And we're going to show a couple of images to make us all feel
Jealous.
Okay, let's play a couple of images of Audrey in Mykonos in his bedroom. Ooh, there you go. That's his room with
Okay,
a view.
I was working on a.
Okay, all right. Look at
Come
that. I mean, look at that.
on.
I
What
was
an
working,
office.
I was
What an
working.
office.
Oh,
What an office.
Look
Yeah.
how you suffer. You poor thing.
Yeah.
Show off.
Oh
I mean, like, oh, what a show off.
But if tables were turned, we would be absolutely doing the exact same
Wonderful. Congratulations that
Thank
you
you.
made it out in the summer, the first of us. But, tell me, when you're in that kind of environment, does how you create change?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're definitely calmer, more relaxed. You're near nature. Of course, you're in a surrounding that's free of masks and
thing.
what have you.
Wow.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was a nice big change from over here.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So will we be hearing some of the works that because you're in that bed there producing clearly?
Oh, actually,
so-
that was I was in the middle of doing music for an ad agency for Mandai, the big Mandai revamp.
Mm.
So it was pretty intense because they were really gunning for the project, and they were very specific about what they wanted.
Mhm.
But eventually Mandai didn't like it. So I was
Oh,
I felt for the agency because they really liked what they what was produced, and
Right.
including all the visuals. Yeah, but it was still a very fun process for
Yeah,
me.
well, you went through it, right?
Yeah, and I
So
mean,
that's
it's
great.
not. I mean, the music was very different from what I normally do, so I got to learn quite a fair bit too.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So can both of you share, like, looking ahead to 2022, what new trends do you see in the dance entertainment scene that you hope to be capitalizing on? Let's go with you, Audrey.
I'm noticing a trend bringing back actual instruments in the new music that's coming out.
Mm.
I don't think it's correct to say that people are done with electronic. Electronic will never die. But I'm noticing people like Leon Bridges, they actually have musical instruments that sound like musical instruments that were probably played on musical instruments as opposed to programmed. So
Mm.
I'm wondering whether the past 2 years, having Zoom meetings, having screens all the time, is making people crave for the old acoustic sound once
Mm.
again. So
lot
I'm
more.
keeping an eye on that.
Okay. A lot more sort of unplugged. Okay. What about you?
I see a lot of interest and a lot of people jumping onto the bandwagon of crypto
Yeah.
and NFTs.
Mm.
So music producers and are collaborating also with visual artists to create unique pieces
Right.
as NFTs. Yeah.
So that's interesting because you, in a way, are creating a metaverse, right, with
Yep.
your Take Back the Nights, right? And that is a perfect home for crypto NFTs, right? Is that some form of collaboration? Are you both thinking about working together in some form?
Hey, why not?
Always open. Always open.
As it is within the world, the metaverse that we built, we have the visual artists who are also playing at Legacy. So
Exactly,
we've
yeah,
got a
that's
lot
right,
of
yeah.
overlap already. We just didn't think to monetize their artwork at that time.
Right. So it could be the beginnings of a really, Singapore-centric metaverse for music, dance, and art that you could create here, right? And how do you see this?
Fingers crossed. That's a really big goal.
I know
It's a very
I
big
know.
goal.
I mean, what do you feel would be the obstacles to that happening?
Funding. The conception that a lot of people have that if it's made in Singapore, it's not as good as if it was made overseas. And a willingness to try something different.
What do you think are the obstacles?
Yeah, exactly what she said. Actually, kind of.
Mm.
How
How do we get over the hump that people perceive that things made in Singapore are not as good? Because if you think about the last 2 years, I mean, there's been a lot of emphasis on Singapore brands, right? There's design in Singapore, there's
Yeah.
the passion made possible, there's all this move towards empowering local artists. So why do you think that's
I
still
mean,
this
based on my
perception?
experience, you always have to end up exporting and then importing it back. And then suddenly the Singaporeans will be like, wow, it's so great. But first you got to kind of bring your work out to be received and from from people abroad, right?
Right,
And once you
okay.
do well there, and then you bring it back, and then
Okay.
Singaporeans suddenly tend to just like see it differently.
Absolutely. And the
Yeah.
other way around that, besides the very tried and tested export, get big, and then come back home route, the other way is to just pretend you're not even Singaporean to begin with, which is something that a lot of designers do. Specifically, I didn't know that Goldleon was a Singapore brand. I didn't know that Akira was a local brand, because Akira doesn't sound like a Singaporean name. It sounds like a Japanese brand, right? But all of these people just wanted to distance themselves from the negative stigma, quote unquote, associated with made in Singapore products. So they just picked a foreign sounding name, and they did well.
All right. So what is the next stage for Take Back the Nights? So if what Audryn is saying is you got to export your brand, so do you see the next stage for Take Back the Nights trying to get to a more global audience, maybe, rather than a Singapore audience? What's the next stage for Take Back the Nights?
Specific to your point, I think that with the internet, it's already a global audience because we didn't restrict people from overseas from accessing it. And with that, you run into the problem of having too much noise in the market, too much going on, such that you don't know how to differentiate yourself from other people. I think with the growing interest of Meta, formerly known as Facebook, in this area, there is a lot of avenues for growth. But I also suspect that small little projects may not have the legs or the lungs, rather, to shout their way through into the crowded marketplace.
Okay. And Audryn, what's the next stage for
you?
your
Funding still.
funding?
It does.
Comes
It
down to
really
funding.
does.
Yeah.
What's the next stage for you? How do you see 2022?
Fingers crossed. I'm still hoping that nightlife would somehow miraculously reopen.
Me too, me too, me too, me too.
Yeah.
It's open in other markets.
Yeah, exactly. So, in fact, even regionally, like Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangkok, they've already kind of reopened up. So we need to catch up with everyone else. Yeah, so I'm just kind of gunning for that. But at the same time, I'm still trying to, maintain presence. And I've kind of breathed new life back into my digital label. So
Okay.
I'm putting out a release at the end of
Yay.
this month.
When is it dropping?
27th
What is it
December.
called?
Okay.
It was part of the NEC project that I did earlier this
Yeah,
year.
the
that
National
we
Arts
talked
Council,
about.
yeah.
So it's called Navigating Through the Pandemic. A bit cliche, but and
Okay.
I'm actually working now with a bunch of regional producers
Nice.
to do a remix project of the original tracks. And that should come out in March sometime next year. Yeah.
Right. So there are still, there are opportunities there, but new opportunities. that
Yeah,
come
you just
up,
have to
right?
create them. I mean.
That's right. Yeah. But it will still, virtual will remain a part of our lives, as Bimal earlier said. Right. Okay. So as we say goodbye to 2021 and we await 2022 in how many days' time? I lost count already. But what are you most excited about?
I want to have a look to see what the industry can do. Right now, we've been playing with one arm tied behind our back, with enough pressure and hope and collective will. Hopefully, they untie our hand and allow us to be a part of the industry, be a part of Singapore society again. So that's one thing that we can't keep our hands tied forever. That's what I'm hoping.
Right. But so in a way, like what you're saying is lifting restrictions on nightlife. Right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What are you most excited about?
Just being alive.
Just being alive. Like, oh,
Being able to still do what I love to do, and not giving up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right. As you say, stay hopeful, right?
Yeah.
Right. And what new tech are you most watching the most in terms of how it will affect your space? Because since you did live streaming, I guess you've gotten better at the tech. What new tech are you most excited about?
I'm actually planning to get more, like maybe pick up a course and learn more with on video editing and motion graphics.
Okay.
I'm really curious about that field, and I think it's high time I put some
That's
investment into it. That's right.
Beautiful.
what about you? What new tech?
Health tech, because I think that once we get over this idea that we can never protect ourselves enough, with technology, maybe there's a way that we can safely get back into the clubs, get back into entertainment spaces, and find a way to measure. There's a new product that was just developed in Japan using, I think, jellyfish enzymes, such that if you use the mask and you put it under UV light, you can see whether you've got COVID. So you don't need to do like the swab test anymore. You can just breathe into that mask.
Wow.
And that would be, imagine the applications, right? If you're going into a club, if you're going into a crowded space, if you're going to an entertainment spot, no more swabs, just breathe on this piece of cloth and we'll put it under the light.
Wow, like a jellyfish game, huh? Like Squid Game. You go in there and your mask comes alive and you go, oh, avoid that person. But yeah, I think there's some new tests coming out, like saliva tests coming out that might make it easier. And hopefully the restrictions on nightlife can be lifted and we can all go back to some nightlife, because for us who like we travel, we've seen that they can come back safely. I was in a New York jazz bar, packed with people, and it was fine.
Exactly.
It felt really, really good. And there's something about live theater and live music where you're in a room breathing with people in the same pace.
Yes.
It just creates this sort of magic feel that you can never get with virtual. So
Exactly.
although we agree that virtual will still be a part of our lives, but we do hope that we can get back to some form of physical life. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aldrin and Audrey, for joining us in our
Welcome.
season
Thanks for having us.
finale. And really, stay hopeful, ascend into the new future, and please keep breathing life into music and dance, okay? Because we truly need it. Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So from our night owls, we move on to those who fed our soul with food and art. All right, so we had Kani Toma, who's a food explorer plus a wonderful chef, and she owns Walk and Stroll. She took us on a journey that told us how she recruited her kids to become studio producers for her virtual events, and how she ran hybrid as well, because she took her guests on tours and then taught them to cook, and then ended up having meals with them. So here's a recap of Kani's episode. Okay. You had to set up a studio at home, and I believe you had your kids at home, and we've picked up some images. So let's go through how you
So
set
as
it
you
up
can
at home.
see, of course, because we were in a lockdown, I couldn't bring professional photographers or assistants. So thanks God, I have 3 kids, and they became my TV crew. And this was amazing, and we still miss this day. So you can see my son here, who is 18, and he was the photographer and the angry producer, and all the time, Mommy, look at the camera. Mommy, not in this side. Mommy, tell the person that he did a lovely dough. So he was the big boss. And my number 2 daughter, Libby, was in charge of the mise en place, the preparation, and the best foldings of the gyoza. And number 3 is Shaili. Shaili was born in Singapore, and she usually came to smile, to eat, and to speak Mandarin with our clients.
Wow, fantastic. So that's you sort of after you finish getting ready to eat.
Yes, this
with
is
your
our
audience.
breakfast
Yeah.
with our audience.
Okay, and then that's your audience.
We
And
should-
are they eating at the same time?
Yeah.
Well, after that, we traveled to Siem Reap and Battambang in Cambodia to hear from 2 very special individuals on how they kept their circus going and kept raising funds so that they could keep their social enterprise afloat. Because at stake are not just jobs, but lives of youths in Cambodia who were destined to become performers and artists. So here's a recap of that episode.
If you can talk us through the images that you sent and how you set up this event technically. Okay. Shall we play the video? Let's play the video. Okay.
The production, as you can imagine, when we're talking about having 31 different shows, and FAR shows are not just 2 or 3 artists on stage, it's a whole story being told. And so the stage setup, the backdrops, the technical, the lighting, the sound, everything is different for every show. And to rotate that around and meet the strict requirements of Guinness not to exceed a certain amount of breaks, that was challenging. And I mean, I was really impressed by everyone coming together, You can see on some of the photos where all the artists and staff, and we had 160 staff and volunteers participating in putting this together. And in between the shows, the backdrop change and the set change, and sometimes we had to continue an activity and act going so that we wouldn't on stage while changing the lighting and the sound, all the connections. Because for some we had live music, some was recorded, some is modern instruments, some is traditional. So all that changes they're happening sometimes while the performance is still going on.
So welcome. We have Kani, Osman, and Dara with us today. How are you? How are you guys?
Hello, everyone.
Great.
Hi,
Happy
hi.
to be
Good to
back.
see
Hello.
you. You know, we all have to. I hope this is the last time we meet like this. Okay.
Please do.
After this, it
I
will
miss
be
you all.
I miss you too. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with rapid fire, one word answers to my questions. One word to describe 2021, Kani.
For me, it was definitely uncertainty.
Uncertainty. Okay. What about you, Osman?
For me, opportunity.
Opportunity. Okay, I like that. And for Dara?
Solidarity.
Solidarity. Okay, that's very positive. All right, what worried you at the beginning of the pandemic that didn't turn out to be such a big worry after all? Kani?
My main concern was that people will stop eating somehow, as I'm a food explorer. So
Okay.
thanks goodness this didn't happen during the pandemic.
I think people probably ate more, Kani. All
More
right.
than enough, I would say.
Osman? Okay, let's go to Dara first.
Association side was about.
Okay, I can't really get Osman. Dara, what worried you at the beginning of the pandemic?
Fortunately or unfortunately, cash flow. But the fact that we survive and we are coming back on stage tells that we have been fortunate to have a healthy cash flow.
Fantastic. I mean, that's a really great worry not to have, right? That didn't turn out, as you had worried about. That's wonderful. Okay, is Osman back? Is Osman back? All right, so let's talk about one word to describe 2022. Kani, what's the one word to describe 2022?
I would say that I decided that for me, it's reinvent.
Reinvent.
This is what I'm going to do this year.
Reinvent. Okay, Dara?
Unpredictability.
Pardon? Adaptability. Okay, adaptability. All right. Okay. So we've lost Osman for a while. Let me know when he comes back on. But Kani, let's go to you. And you were on episode 2 on how the food must go on, and people kept eating. Oh, Osman is back. Osman,
Yes, sorry.
yay! Welcome back. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So we go back to the question, like, what worried you at the beginning of the pandemic that didn't turn out to be a big worry after all?
Well, most definitely financial resources to keep going and keep the programs open.
Okay. So you and Dara kind of share a similar sentiment. And one
Yeah.
word to describe 2022 for you.
Well, I hope resurgence.
Resurgence. Okay. All right. Resurgence of travel. All right. So Kani, let's
activities, everything.
Kani, you were the episode was called "How the Food Must Go On," right? And I think as you were we actually did not eat little; we ate a lot. How have you been keeping up with virtual events? Because I know you're in London now.
Yeah.
And things were back to normal, although it seems to be going crazy right now. Have you been keeping up with virtual events, or are you back to physical events? How are you kind of mixing it up?
Okay, so I arrived to London 4 months ago. I was spoiled with good weather and no pandemic environment. So it was really nice to forget for a while from all the viruses around us. And during this time, I started doing a hands-on experience, something that I really missed. But the funny thing to say is during one of my hands-on experiences here in London, suddenly one of the participants came with the phone and placed it in front of me and she said, this is one of the participants, she cannot join us, so she will do it virtual. And then I said, okay, this is a hybrid event again. Here I am, mixing hands-on and virtual. It's not here to go yet.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, Singapore is opening very slowly. So my excellent team is doing tours already to domestic clients. And I'm very fortunate that we are all over the bus stops and MRT stations publishing our tours at Katong now.
Yeah. It's good that virtual gives people a choice, right? Whether you're running a physical, but if they can't attend, it gives them a choice to join you. So
It gave
Osman,
us another tool.
yeah. So Osman Dara, we had an amazing episode in June, and we spoke about how the show must go on, and you talked about your 24-hour circus performance where you raised more than $100,000, which was amazing. Tell us how your social enterprise has been faring since then, Osman.
Well, here actually better than expected. The event raised our profile. We ended up winning 11 awards for it over the year. New supporters came on board, and it triggered other fundraising events like the one that you hosted for us as well. And we have secured funding to keep us going for the next year, which is a very good position to be in, despite everyone still showing solidarity, continuing on pay cuts. But we are very hopeful for making it through. And the time has been also well spent by pushing through a lot of program changes to make it more impactful. The team is continuing with their learning as well and continuing to make the changes necessary. So really impressed by the solidarity shown by everyone here in the team. So we're all very positive about next year.
That's great. So, even though it was an event which was amazing and it won you 11 awards, it really was the trigger for a lot of other good things that came, so it created a lot of good karma, throughout its journey, which is fantastic.
Yes.
So Dara, I mean, we also spoke about, Cambodia's reopening, and finally it's reopened, fully open. You were the first Southeast Asian country to declare quarantine free to all vaccinated travelers, so must be really, really excited. But how's the feeling on the ground right now?
Over the moon. So, first international flight from Singapore by Singapore Airlines arriving tomorrow morning. My colleagues and I plan to just go and cheer on the airplane.
I wish I was there.
And by the way, they don't need a PCR test on arrival. They just need a simple rapid test. 10 minutes, finish, no drama. One of the very most open borders in the whole region. So very grateful for that.
Yeah. So the fact that the vaccinated travel lane was open to Cambodia with Singapore is fantastic. And I've been telling all my friends in Europe that this is probably the best time to visit Siem Reap and Phnom Penh because of the lack of tourists right now, and you don't have to fight for people to take that wonderful shots of Angkor. So this is really the best time to visit Cambodia.
This is once of a lifetime opportunity, really, because there were just so many tourists before, and now you can just lose yourself in all these history and culture and food. The best time to come, once in a lifetime. And we hope there won't be such an opportunity in the future, because we all survive on tourism.
Yeah, and it's really like you would be part of history actually going now. Can you imagine, right? So Kani, in your episode, you share these tips to going virtual. So we come back to this creative series, right? And the summary again can be found on the Get Me website, the summary of your blog. And this was what you said. This was important. These were the tips that you shared with us. Have you learned any additional lesson, given as this pandemic has dragged on longer than any of us could imagine?
I think my personal lesson, and I think that it's going global, is that we need a lot of patience. I'm very hyperactive, and for me, it's a lesson of being patient and wait and see what's going on and adjust all the time to the changes that are happening every time.
This is my thing. And Dara and Osman, I've been twice to Cambodia and to your circus. The first time I was so amazed that when I planned my second visit, I planned the dates when I saw that there are tickets for the circus. So I'm your biggest fan. And everyone, go there. It's even more amazing than the temples, I would say. So I'm proud to be with you here.
Yeah,
And thank you. And
I
I hope
agree with you.
Thank
I agree with you,
I'll
Kani.
come again, I promise. I promise.
and I hope you also would do something around the food in Cambodia as well the next time you come.
I did, but
Exactly.
I
Oh my
tell you,
God.
the highlight was the circus. Really.
and
Yeah,
and next time come up to Battambang.
I, I'm coming. Don't
yeah,
worry.
at Wits, we got a taste of the magic of the circus. Although it's not like the real thing, like being there physically, but we wanted to showcase the Far Circus to our audience, and we did a fundraising at Wits. And Far did a 20-minute virtual performance for our delegates, and together we raised more than US $50,000 to cover student scholarships, for a year. So really, really pleased. Let's play a short video of that virtual performance, and just a quick one. you know, we had we we had our hearts in our mouths when we were watching that, and at the same time, I think a lot of our delegates actually felt emotional. I certainly felt emotional because, I felt that with every flip and every twist and turn of the performance, that it was done with so much, like it told me stories of resilience, resilience and passion for what they did. How did it feel putting that together for our international audience? Because I believe that was kind of the first virtual performance you did after the 24-hour act. Osman?
Yeah, well, the students were super excited to be back on stage for a global audience after many months. It was a new experience for them, not having a live audience and not feeling them cheer at the same time. But later on, of course, we shared the feedback that you gave us, and they were super thrilled, and they were all like, "Oh, we want to do more. We want to do more." They're just happy to be back and performing. And when possible, we give them the feedback through a TV screen of what's happening on the other side. But yeah, they were super thrilled. Again, the technical sides of it we're also learning, but I think it went really well. So we can do more.
Yeah, and the fact is that it was virtual did not stop the event from reaching out and touching the hearts of of people who are watching, right? Because they went into their pockets and really contributed
Yes.
to our auction. So clearly, virtual is able to basically cross that emotional divide as well. So it's pretty powerful. So for a summary of episode 3, it can be found in the GAFME website too, and the link that's been shared with you in the chat. And your tips, in summary, you had a lot of tips, which was flexibility, and all that. So, Dara, do you have any other tip that you would like to share for your, for the audience? And Kani, do you have another tip other than patience? So, Dara, let's go to you.
A few words. Flexibility. Every problem has creative solutions. So just find ways to implement those creative solutions.
Okay. All right. Kani, which one do you identify with the most?
I think that I just think about the flexibility that is thinking out of the box every moment. And the
Right.
other is be creative all the time. Look for other opportunities, look behind the solutions. And
Right.
the brain needs to work very hard these days. Better
Yeah.
than eating all the time.
Do you all see virtual as a big part of what you're going to be doing in 2022, or do you think that we are all kind of tired of virtual? Because the most of the world has opened up and they've gone back to real life. So Connie, start with you.
I think that as I had the opportunity to taste the old world here in London, I would say that maybe for corporates, they had enough of virtual, but there are a lot of markets that need this virtual yet, and they will need it in the future. And it's another opportunity for us to identify maybe seniors that cannot take cruises anymore, or people that cannot fly from other reasons. And here we are. We know already the tool. We just need to upgrade it a bit, adjust a bit, but we have another tool to expand the market. So let's
That's a
choose it.
yeah. That's a good way of thinking about it. Like still virtual being still very relevant to a critical part of the audience that cannot actually be traveling or flying, in the next year. So Osman and Dara, what's your thinking on that? Let's start with Osman.
Well, I think hybrid will continue. We have seen that we've been able to reach audience never could reach before, and now when we post an event happening in person here on our Facebook, we do get messages, comments by people. Oh, will there be a recording of it? Can we watch it? Because now, even though they're on the other side of the world, they want to stay in touch, and so I think we will continue in some format our virtual reach out for performances and events that we do.
Yeah. Dara?
FAR is a creative organization, so we always find ways to find creative ideas to surprise audiences on stage, and we have always wanted to use technology as part of that surprise element, right? We have seen international, global production like Cirque du Soleil, things that are inspiring on stage and surprising for the audience that we were not able to do. And the pandemic has allowed us to try to make it happen. And we are hoping that in our new creation, there will be those kind of technology elements on stage that we want to implement. Thank you.
Right. Well, we heard how Vimal, who's the CEO of GAFME, speak at the very beginning about, how, companies need to create original content, right? And even event tech companies like his creating original content like what we're doing here. And your FAR circus, your FAR enterprise is made to create original quality content. So it's really a great opportunity for, Kani, Osman, and Dara to be creating original content using digital. All right. So as we say goodbye to 2021, how relieved are you that 2021 is nearly over? Like, are you relieved? So as we say
For
goodbye
sure.
to yeah, as we say goodbye to 2021 and we await 2022. All right. What are you most excited about, Kani?
That I'm going to a Liverpool game tonight.
Bring your COVID pass, Osman.
I'll bring 2 masks.
Osman.
Well, personally, I'm excited about going home after 3 years, but I think for the
Wow.
organization here, we're really excited. This is renewed, and after this quiet 2 years, we can, greet visitors again with enthusiasm, and everyone is hoping to get more of that life back. Yeah.
When are you going home and where is home?
Home, son. I'm leaving this Sunday.
Sunday. Okay, well, have a good flight. And Dara, what are you most
Thank
excited
you.
about?
Coming back on stage regularly for the weekend program from next week,
Yeah,
from the Christmas weekend, and FAR circus season in Phnom Penh. So we are excited to expand our footprint to new market. We are creating a FAR performance season in February and March in Phnom Penh.
Right. I've seen on your social media that you're back to physical events, which is fantastic. What a difference, from the time that we were speaking in June or May. Fantastic. So finally, okay, one tip, guys, to becoming more creative to face whatever the new year brings. Kani,
Flexibility.
all right.
Right.
Osman?
Mm. I think looking for collaborations and partnerships, we found that many other people are also looking for creative solutions and partnering up. We find new exciting ways to do things together.
Okay. Dara?
Mentoring and coaching.
Mentoring and coaching. I like that. Thank you. Thank you, Kani. I hope to eat with you again soon.
Yes,
The
please.
last meal we had in Chinatown was just super amazing
Dim
with that
sum.
wonderful.
That's what I wanted to tell you.
Yeah, and Osman and
Chinese
Dara, I hope to see you both soon, and I'll be in the big top
Yes.
with your Far Circus. Thank you so much for joining
And
us.
nice to meet you,
you.
Kani.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet
Okay.
you. Bye.
You too.
All right.
Bye bye.
Okay, so we're gonna do another audience poll here. So we got poll 3 and 4 coming up. What will you do to become more creative in the new year, and what quality will be most needed to get through 2022? And I've got the results of poll 1 and poll 2, and how relieved are you that 2021 is nearly over? Well, nearly 60%, more than 60% of you say that you are very relieved, but you believe that 2022 will be as challenging. All right. And for those who believe, do you think virtual will remain part of events in 2022? 73% says for sure. 13 says I like to think so, but hybrid still too costly to make economic sense. And C, if I could, I'd go physical only. So that's about 13%. So thank you for your participation and taking part in our polling. So on to the next session. The moment of panic after National Day last year. I remember you told me that you woke up in cold sweat wondering if you were going to be jobless for the rest of your life. Tell us what that moment of panic led you to do.
Well, for those of our viewers out there, National Day in Singapore is one of the biggest occasions ever, and I was hosting it last year, so it was a really big gig for me, right? And then the moment August 10th happened, after National Day, I realized, oh dear, after a big gig like that, what's next? And nothing was on the cards for a very long time, and so that's why I panicked, and I thought, okay, I remember Derek trying to sell me this new concept of 360-degree camera technology months back, trying to get theatre productions to use it, or theatre companies to use the technology. And I thought to myself, why don't I, use this technology, do a whodunit mystery, but where do I set it in? Where would it be amazing for people to go? I want to be there. I want to watch it. I thought Raffles Hotel Singapore, because everyone knows that brand.
Right.
So I came up with a synopsis. I went to Raffles and I said, guess what? I've got this.
So he still has a job. So are you curious about how the curious case of the missing Peranakan treasure at the Raffles went on to the next stage? Well, we were. So we asked Hozan Leong, who's an actor, entrepreneur, producer, entertainer, who's, to me, an all-in-one human being, to tell us what he's been up to since we last spoke to him in July. So here's Hozan Leong. Hey, Hozan, how are you?
Hi, Siu Hoon. I am doing very well, enjoying the very cold summer right now, actually.
I am so envious. So you finally got out to Sydney, Australia in November, as I understand. So how does it feel to finally travel and be free?
Wow. Let's just say that I almost forgot what to do. All the things to do at the airport, you forget that, oh, you need this, you need that. And then getting on a plane. But it's a really nice feeling to be able to just get out of well, I guess in a way, our comfort zone for a little while and come to a different place. And I think for me in Sydney here, it's realizing that life actually is quite normal here. Like everyone's just going about their business. Cases aren't that high. In fact, they're quite low, 200 over a day in all of New South Wales, which is huge. So I think I am really enjoying being, living a normal life.
Yeah, and I think in the past you've always told me that travel is essential to your creativity, right? You said that, travel in a way has kind of made you who you are. So can you tell us how travel makes you creative?
It's just being able to explore different points of view, discuss about life in a very open, dual way kind of thing. Because I realize in Singapore a lot of times, and it's not criticism, it's just something that I've observed, that when you speak with Singaporeans, it's always one-sided. It's always, am I right? I'm right, right? I'm right, right? Whereas here, I find when I travel, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of let's exchange our points of view. Yeah, we may not agree, but at least we hear both sides. And also, I get a chance to, on a lighter note, go out and watch movies and plays and musicals, which I just watched. The James Bond movie. I've put it off for so long. Things like that, and being able to just walk in the park. Yeah.
But you can
enjoy
also
myself.
you can also do that here, but perhaps more limited. And basically, creativity comes from diversity and discussion with diverse, viewpoints, right? I mean, that's essentially what you're
Yeah.
saying. So now you and Derek Chew, who unfortunately cannot join us, you were on episode 4 in July. Seems like a lifetime ago already. And we spoke about how theater must go on, and then how you created this digital interactive play, right, with the curious case of the missing Peranakan treasure at the Raffles. You still remember that? So
Yes,
we actually we actually summarized the learnings at a blog link on GAFME, which we will share with the audience. And you were really most excited about how it opened a new audience to you, and how you could actually create a financially viable digital theater. So I'm curious, right? What else have you been working on since we last spoke? Like, what is the extension of this curious case?
Well, there have been a couple of projects in the pipeline. Now, currently, Derek and I are working on a brand new curious case. It's a kind of a heist, and it's kind of based in and around the civic district. So the buildings involved are National Gallery, Victoria Theatre, the Arts House, ACM, and Esplanade. And so that's still being crafted. It's going to be game format, with a very loose storyline. So you gather 3 of your friends and form a group and try and solve this heist that's going on around this area. So that's what we're working on right now. And other than that, I mean, we've been trying to come up with another story for another curious case. And this was, I think, we worked together a little bit on that for Katong Juchiat district, but that's been put on hold for a little bit because it's all about funding, it's all about time, it's all about
You
resources as
see,
well.
it still comes down to funding. But I'm curious about the gamification and augmented reality, because when we last spoke to, those were the 2 tech that you were most interested in, you and Derek. So your next curious case will have gamification, right? You're talking about 3 people playing the game, and also augmented reality. Are you going to be using that in your new play?
Yes, we are going to try to put in, how do I put it nicely? Because what we've learned from the curious case in the first iteration of it was, it's all dependent on how your computer at home is set up. People have called in and said, "Oh, we can't watch it. Oh, why did it die halfway? Oh," and then despite us giving instructions about, "Oh, please use Google Chrome, please have strong Wi-Fi," da da da. So it boils down to the end user, right? So we're trying to cut out those problems when we go on site and play this game. So we're going to go back to basics. You scan a code, brings you to a website, you solve puzzles, things like that. So we still will use technology, but everyone's got a different device. everyone's got different ways of using their devices. So we're trying to cut out as much problems as we can for the end user as well as for the tech team. When they go, hey, not working, how? Help in the middle of the night. It's all dependent on all this right now. So sadly, Singapore is not there yet. I don't know with regards to in regard to technology and all that.
You mean, but therein lies the challenge of most virtual events, right? I mean, like you can have the most sophisticated platform, all the bells and whistles and all that, but at the end of the day, it's that end user. And if you've got a global audience, like somebody sitting in Afghanistan or to Athens, the experience is very different. So what you're saying is simplify the technology a lot more and think about the end user experience a lot more, right?
Absolutely, because that's
Okay.
where they enjoy themselves, right? Otherwise, they could keep complaining that your product doesn't work. Actually, it does work, but it's because what's happening on your end. Of course, we can't say that to the customer, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting that, like almost 2 years into using virtual and all that, we're still back to that first problem, which is, the user experience and how it's different for each person, right? Okay. So, but at least we've been able to get back to some live, and I caught you in a live musical called Forever Young. And it was a musical that you directed, and it was so wonderful. It felt so good to be watching a live musical again, and did you think about adding a virtual component to that?
Actually, I did initially in my initial vision for the show, but when you do to put in technology into a show, into a live show, it brings up the costs considerably because I wanted to have hologram. I wanted to have flashbacks of because Forever Young is about, old people in a old folks home, flashbacks to when they were young and use hologram technology for that. But wow, when the quotes come in and you go like, okay, I think we just keep it simple now, huh?
So at the end of the day, it came down to simplicity. But again, couldn't you have just added a hybrid element to that so that people could actually watch it on live streaming? Why didn't you add that virtual component?
I think because live streaming that especially for a musical would run into copyright issues, and this is
Ah,
not a foreign show, so there'll be a lot of that kind of issues come into play, copyright,
okay.
you're not allowed to, etc., etc.
So that's interesting. So how did it feel to perform on stage again in front of a live audience?
It was liberating. We really couldn't believe it's like getting on a plane after all these years. Like we couldn't believe we're doing this. Unfortunately, when we were performing, it was to limited capacity audiences, so it was a bit sad. But I was very thankful for those who came, like yourself, for example, people who came to support. It was very, very heartwarming. And I heard that JJ Lin just did his concert for the full house, so that was a
Yes,
pilot event.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So
So I hope
so
that
so
was
it's coming back. It's coming back,
yeah. I hope so.
so but for us in the audience, it didn't really matter whether it was limited capacity, like we were just there in the present moment to and the good thing is like we could really understand the live performers appreciation to be able to perform live to us, so it was kind of almost a mutual celebration, right, of freedom at that moment.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
think that and I think what we've done in the virtual world has made us appreciate a lot more what actually can happen in the live world. So now that you're
absolutely.
in Australia, yeah, now you're in Australia for a while and you're watching a lot of musicals or plays, right? What new trends in theater and live entertainment are you watching that you think will be really interesting to experiment with in the following year?
I think, like you said, I think it's going to be an amalgamation or or the inclusion of technology because I just watched a Sondheim musical a couple of days ago called Merrily We Roll Along, and it's a tiny theater, tiny 80 people audience, and they used live cameras. So it's so small that how do you have a big group of people on stage singing and dancing? They had actors looking into cameras off stage, and their faces were all on the screen on top. So you get them singing live to you, yet you know that they're backstage, but you know what I mean. So it just multiplies the number of people
Mm.
that performers, for example. So those kind of smart ways of trying to go around the problems that we are facing, and also staging. How do we stage shows nowadays? You know, next week I'm going to watch Hamilton the musical, so I'm very excited.
All
So
right. Okay.
and yeah, and last week I saw a Singapore play here. I don't know if you remember Ovidia Yu's play Three Fat Virgins Unassembled. It
Yes, I
was a
have. Yeah.
who wrote 1993. It was restaged here just last week by
There you
Australians. It
go. You
was
see? Yeah. It's becoming a global world. So I was in. So I have to share that I was in New York as well, and I caught a play every night, right?
oh
And
wow.
definitely one of them that I saw used very smart use of multimedia, to amplify the experience because you could only have a limited number of performers on stage because of the social distancing, right? So very clever use of technology to amplify, as you say, to amplify not only the performance but also the performance itself and the feeling of the play. So wonderful trend. So that's good. So you're going to be experimenting with a lot more using of simple technology, not too
Yeah,
complicated,
simple
right?
technology within the budget constraints. The producer will scold me.
All right. Okay. So let's come back to the curious case of the Peranakan treasure, right? How has it been going? I mean, it's now running forever, right? I mean, it's available forever. How's it been going, and how have you sort of kept up the momentum of marketing it?
I must admit that after the initial push until I think until April, May, June, July, August, the take up rate has really nosedived for quite badly because I think people have started to go out. Restrictions have been lifted, so to speak. People are tired of virtual now, on staying at home and watching something or just playing something. So also the user experience, like we mentioned before. However, schools have been coming to us and saying, "Hey, after exams, we want to, entertain the kids, something that they can do, and maybe even learn something from it." And so they've been buying up packages from us, and so that has
Wonderful.
gone down that route now. So, I mean, curious case, I think we are going to stop selling tickets in January because I think it's no point
Okay.
already. People are not
Okay.
not they're on to something new. But it will be
Right.
kept on the back burner for schools, for communities, for companies who want to do online stuff together, because I think real D&Ds aren't going to happen for a while. So yeah, so that, I mean, I'm not disappointed that it didn't pick up globally. I'm just interested to see how it morphed into a community kind of engagement.
Well, I mean, the great thing about virtual content is that it lives on forever, right? And so it can find different users and different audiences, right? So your work can reach a lot more people with what you've just created that one time. So I mean, that's the scalability of technology. So let's do a quick round of rapid fire to wrap up, okay? Right. One word to
Okay.
describe 2021. One word.
Oh, 2021. Grueling.
Okay. What worried you at the beginning of the pandemic that didn't turn out to be such a big worry after all?
That I would be jobless.
Well, you created your own job. What book or movie did you read or watch that you would not have done otherwise?
Wow. Wow. I must admit that I've just been, if I wasn't working, I was binging on Netflix and stuff. So I haven't actually gone out of my comfort zone at all.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to challenge you to do that in 2022 to get out of that
I
comfort
sh-
zone and do
yeah.
something that you would not have done otherwise. Okay. So
I
therefore, one
actually I
word to
actually brought a
describe.
book with me though. I actually brought a book with me, so
Sorry.
I am going to start. I brought a book with me, so I'm going to start reading that. So challenge accepted.
Okay. And may I know what's the book?
Oh, it's a book that Harish Sharma wrote. It's called How to Devise a Play, Devising a Play. So, you know, it's not a
Okay.
no, I wouldn't say fun boy. You know what I mean? It's a technical book.
All right. Okay. So that's on your must read book. Okay. One word to describe 2022 that's coming.
I would want to use the word hope.
And as we say goodbye to 2021 and await 2022, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited that I have two big projects coming up, which I can share with you. So I'm excited that I will be able to go back home and start work on a new musical called Quasimodo. It's about the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And then later in the year, I will be directing the called revamp of this musical called A Singaporean in Paris.
Oh, wonderful. I just returned from Paris, so come to me for notes. Okay. What are you most apprehensive about?
Well, I think this apprehension is what everyone's feeling, that the virus could go mad again and then things would go back to square one. But I'm trying to not think about that because because like I said, this year was grueling because it was just so like what's going to happen. But which I think like us, we're just going to bite the bullet and take it as it is. Take it, cup it on the chin, move on.
Yeah. Exactly. And your word is hope, right? So there you go. Right. And what is the resolution that you will or will not make?
That I'll stop drinking? No, kidding.
You're in Australia. That's impossible.
Exactly. It's $19 for a bottle of wine. It's like, okay. No, I mean, frankly, I don't make resolutions. So what I won't make, I won't make resolutions because, ultimately, I just wish that for myself and the people I love and people around me to be healthy and happy. I think that's most important.
Absolutely. So finally, like to our audience out there who are event organizers and professionals who are kind of looking forward to a year when we can have a bit more physical events, or even if we have to do hybrid or virtual, one tip to becoming more creative in the new year
is to let go, I think, and realize that actually the problems that we are facing aren't that crazy. I mean, I'm being superficial here, but if you let go, take a step back, start to reevaluate, breathe a little bit, and come back into it, I find that most of my problems can be solved quite easily, or at least once the step in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, that's very good advice, Hosan. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining the season finale of the Virtual Experience Maker series. Thank you for joining us, and to wrap up a grueling year, but we look forward to a hopeful 2022 and seeing you back here and looking forward to catching your plays. Thanks, Hosan.
Thanks, Yehud. Thanks, guys.
So now we move on to a case study of a venue that probably had the biggest transformation of all time during the pandemic. From converting spaces to hybrid, from adding new tech and tools so that it could empower event professionals like us to continue to hold events, retraining its team, but above all, rethinking the entire conference and exhibitions industry. So you could say that it actually had the most to lose, but it also had the most to gain if it was bold and visionary. And Marina Bay Sands certainly stepped up to the challenge when it launched its virtual meeting place and its vision of creating a unified experience. So let's play that video.
We are an industry where face-to-face is core to all that we do. In the last 18 months, virtual and hybrid meetings have become the norm, empowering us to be able to continue to drive engagement for our communities. Now, it's time to truly reimagine our future. The future of the events industry is not hybrid. The future is omni-channel. The future is a forever on or never off model, where successful face-to-face annual meeting is augmented by regular, well-designed virtual engagements across the rest of the year. To empower our communities and audiences on a 365 24/7 model, where content, knowledge, and networks could be consumed on demand. In this new future, think eyeballs, not just footfall. Think audiences, not just delegates. Communities, not just memberships. And engagement, not just content. This is why we conceptualized the virtual meeting place, a virtual extension to our physical meeting venues, to serve as an omni-channel platform for our client communities in this increasingly O2O2O world. This is Wimin, signing off from the virtual meeting place at Marina Bay Sands.
So it's great to have Ong Wee Min. We've beamed him from that studio just now that you had into this studio. So it's fantastic to have you here. What a time it's been, the last 20 months, I would say, right?
Yes, there's been I think when we first met, when the industry first reopened, we said it was very stressful, but strangely exciting. I think it has been truly that stressful, challenging, but strangely exciting for the whole
Right.
industry.
So you still feel that way,
Of
right?
course,
Despite the fact that it's been dragging on further, but you've been really busy this time. I mean, I was told that you're still organizing exhibitions and conferences at this time of the year.
Yes, we
so
are.
you're still very busy.
Yes, we serve as a platform for our clients to engage their communities, and these engagements will never stop. If in fact, right in the months of first few months of COVID, when we first opened a hybrid broadcast studio, we did it hybrid, we did it virtually, and now people meet face to face and bring on a different element of their meetings, and to engage the communities in different ways.
Okay, so we'll get back into what you said, in the video where you said that the future of events is not hybrid, but it's omni-channel. So we're going to dig further into that. But before we do that, let's start off with some rapid fire, okay? Right. So how relieved are you that 2021 is nearly over? Scale of 1 to 10,
11.
10 being most relieved.
11.
11. So that's great because our audience, like 61% of them said they were relieved, but they believe that 2022 will be as challenging as well.
Yep.
So, okay. So one word to describe 2021.
Courage.
Courage.
The courage to be resilient, the courage to do something different, the courage to pivot, the courage to fight back, so as to say.
All right, okay. So 10 years from now, I know you got a little kid, you know, 10 years from now, when you look back on it, what will you be telling your kid about this period?
Challenging, stressful, but strangely
exciting.
interesting and exciting. Yes.
Okay, but you faced it with courage.
Yes.
And that's what you're going to pass on to your kid. Like, you got to face everything with courage. Okay.
Right.
So let's talk about what you said and did in that sort of amazing transformation of your venue for the industry. So you said that the future of events is not hybrid, but omni-channel. So what is the difference?
Well, hybrid is where you run one physical event. It's face-to-face and a virtual component alongside it. When in the first few months when the industry first reopened post-COVID, probably about 5% of our people could meet face-to-face due to restriction, 10 people, 50 people, 250 people. We are used to that numbers now. And the bulk of the people that usually come for meetings can't meet. So we have to create a platform and a way to reach these audiences who want to continue to engage, but they can't because they can't be physically on site. And that's why hybrid was then the future. Why do we say that hybrid is not the future? Because hybrid has become a way of life for all of us. Even till now, and I believe in 2022 as well, it would be, we could have maybe 95% or 90% of our audiences meeting face-to-face, 10% joining us virtually, but that virtual experience never ends.
Okay.
So where does omni-channel come in? So in the first few months post-COVID, it was virtual, face-to-face and virtual running together. We believe in 2022 and beyond, it will be delinked. The face-to-face component will form the beautiful event where everybody meets. In the 6 months or 8 months before the meeting, the community will be engaging hybrid, virtually through the virtual meeting place, exchanging content, exchanging networks, exchanging ideas. leading up and building to a very successful face-to-face meeting. And post face-to-face, it would be another 6 to 8 months of post-event engagement, where the community could be engaged in vertical topics or geographical topics itself that binds the whole community together.
Right.
So you look at the face-to-face event as the golden goose, and look at the virtual experience, the virtual elements of it as the two bookends to strengthen it. Look at it as sports. We were talking just now about sports. I'm a Liverpool fan, so look at the face-to-face event as the stadium where we go for the face-to-face match.
And they're having a match tonight.
Yes, oh my God. But I'm here with you. I love you more. And the virtual component being the live telecast that happens in the days that we are not in the stadium. Helping the club and helping the game to build brand loyalty, build the story, and strengthen the community more.
Okay, so omni-channel means like what you said was always on, and then you got to think about eyeballs, you got to think about communities, and you got to think about audience.
Yes.
So that's the difference in the thinking. But in a way, we mean it's like you're describing to me almost like a media, like the company that I'm with, North Star Travel Group. We're like a media and events company. And we are very used to actually this omni-channel, right? So we run maybe 6 events in a year or one tentpole event, but the rest of the year, we always have content going on and our audiences continue to engage with us. So what you're saying is that the events industry needs to follow the media industry?
Yes, I think the event industry has evolved. The event industry that we know will return, but it will return in a slightly different manner. The tentpole event, which is the face-to-face event, will be there, will be strengthened because people can't wait to meet face-to-face. Everywhere you see around the world, when they open up for face-to-face meetings, attendance goes through the roof. But that doesn't mean that people do meet virtually. Look at it as the cinema. We go to cinema to see Shang-Chi, for example, with our loved ones. But we watch Netflix because it's 24/7 on demand, 365. We watch it as and when we want it.
Okay, so let's talk about your virtual meeting place, which was shown in the video, and it was launched in mid-October. I remember the date very well because it was 3 days before our event. When did the idea of building a virtual venue come from, and what was the opportunity you saw?
So when we first ran the first virtual and hybrid event in our own virtual broadcast studio, it was very successful, and it was a learning journey. We kind of got the hang of it and became really good at it after a few runs. And then in December, if I don't remember wrongly, one of the most junior members of the team was standing beside me as we were running a hybrid meeting, and we were saying, "Oh, how great this is, beautiful, we're hitting it right off the park." And then he said one thing that some of us just turned over and looked at him, and he says, "What?" And what did he say? He says, "Well, if only the virtual delegates can get some form of a unified experience, as the face-to-face." We asked, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, look, face-to-face delegates, they're in this very beautiful hybrid broadcast studio, with moving screens going up and down. But the virtual audience sees a screen, and with a screen with a backdrop that's usually quite sterile, and says, what is stopping us from unifying the experience? Bringing parts of MBS, Marina Bay Sands, where I'm from, because the face-to-face meeting is here, and marrying that experience together." And that's the birth of the hybrid that's the birth of the virtual meeting place. An idea, a vision from a member of the team to say, who noticed that it's 2 different experiences. All you want is 2 different experiences, but you have to make efforts to unify it, not just by content, by engagement, by gamification, but also by sheer
by the senses,
look and feel.
the visual of
yes,
it, right? So that's amazing that it shows that creativity can come from anywhere and from the most unexpected if you have a very open culture within the organization that actually encourages people to share ideas. That is quite amazing. What was the journey of developing it like, and who was involved in it?
Have you been in a roller coaster? It goes up and down. So we look at the word unified experience and we look at the ballroom. That we are
easy to say.
Easy to say, yeah. And then we said, all right, okay, let's draw it like the ballroom, and it became the ballroom. But it was boring because the ballroom, when you are there with a face-to-face event, you have delegates, you have engagement, you have that spontaneity. But when you are looking at it on a screen, you see a blank space, beautiful carpets, beautiful walls, nice stage setup, but that's it. You are there alone. And said, okay, what could we do, to enhance experience? And when one of the team then stood up and says, well, we should rework the space. Taking ditch the idea of having just the ballroom experience and just a building experience, and we are destination itself, Marina Bay Sands. You bring in different elements of Marina Bay Sands, the Sky Park, the Art Science Museum, the Sunset River in the shops, the hotel, MICE, the convention center, and in due course, various elements of Singapore, Gardens by the Bay, example, the Malayan Park, to augment that in Singapore experience, that augment that in Marina Bay Sands experience together.
Right.
And that was the turning point, because we literally did months and months of drawings of ballrooms, renderings, turning a 2D space floor plan into a 3D imagery that looked nice but didn't really make sense. And then we ditched that, and then we quickly changed courses. So it was a roller coaster ride,
Yeah, but it kind of reminds me of the early days of the internet, when people started first putting their brochures on the website, right? And then it just had to become much more dynamic as we learned how to basically create content for a new kind of medium.
Correct.
You cannot take old content for a new medium.
Precisely.
Basically, right?
Yes.
So you had to rework
Yes.
the space. So other than the transformation in the thinking of it, right? What did the transformation your team had to go through, right, in terms of selling it, though? Because you were selling square foot, now you're selling pixels. It's different.
It is different. It's about mindsets. When we first started the hybrid broadcast studio, it was the same. People looked at it and said, "Well, we sell meeting space, stage, sitting arrangement, F&B, but now we sell screens with cameras." It is a mindset shift. But it's also about the ability to engage the marketplace in new conversations, and that's where training and development really come in. Marina Bay Sands, and we are very lucky. We work with stakeholders, global stakeholders. We looked at global accreditation in digital events planning, for example, in elements of technology like 3D imagery, and we bring in different elements of that together. It was interesting to know that when we first started the journey, it was alone. Because when you want to move fast, you go alone. But even to go far, you have to go together with like-minded people, stakeholders, industry partners. So when the virtual meeting place really took off, when we brought in GaveMe, which was the platform, we brought in Pico to be our interior designer and concept. We brought in a company called 6 Trees. Who are experts in 3D imagery, in whatever protocols and language that you can find. And they are not in this traditional mind space. They do drawings and they do graphics for computer games.
Right.
But it has been a wildly successful collaboration. It is, I look at it and I look at it, maybe you ask me, I'll tell my son in 10 years' time, it is a of Singapore, for Singapore, by Singapore. Initiative.
Well, it needs somebody to take that first step, right? And then you bring like-minded partners, but actually not only like-minded partners, but actually diverse partners, actually, with different kinds of thinking, because magic happens when there's diversity.
Who challenge you, and more important, and there's another stakeholder that I must mention. Stakeholders like yourself, you are the UAT when we tested the virtual meeting place. You had the courage to try something different with us, to unify the experience and have a jab at it, rather than being very safe. And we have a couple of clients who helped us along the way, who gave us their feedback and the client's feedback, who took the plunge with us, and every single evolution, every single edition became a better virtual meeting place.
Okay, well, thank you, women, for giving us 3 days, 3 days to move into the virtual meeting place for the WIC conference, and we're going to just show a couple of images of how our team worked with GaveMe and your team to move into this new house, brand new house, in 3 days. Let's show some of the images, and I think we all learned a lot, where we created our own branding and using, but it really felt like, a sense of arrival into this space. So given that physical events are coming back, slowly, but they are coming back. How will the virtual meeting place like this, fit within your range of services?
So it's interesting, in the last 2 months or so, we have been talking with clients about the physical event and the virtual meeting place running alongside it. Someone seems to have flipped the switch in everyone's mind. Now we're engaging in conversations with a client marketplace on and enlarging the experience into a 365 days.
Yeah.
So an event that comes into our home, like WIT, for example, have the physical event here, and they have their forever home on the virtual meeting place. So increasingly, in the last month or so, we have been engaging a lot of discussions with our clients on sharing ideas of what they could do, by having a forever home. How would they be able to drive engagement to specific communities? How are they able to drive value to their sponsors? And does it make financial sense at all? I think that at the end of the day, that's the biggest conversation.
That's probably the biggest question. I think we started having this conversation even before the virtual meeting place was launched, and we talked about how it could become a forever home for WIT conference, right? And so that's something that definitely we're going to be exploring and experimenting with for the new year to see how that, because I'm very excited about a place where content can live on forever, but it's not dead content. It's live content, It's like it's content that lives, So that's great. But it's very easy for Marina Bay Sands. You got lots of budgets, you got lots of resources and all that, right? And so you can transform, you can do this cool stuff. Is it limited to enterprises like yours? You think digital transformation like that?
No, actually, throughout the entire industry, we have examples of companies coming up with various innovation. Innovation doesn't come with a price tag. I mean, the price tag helps, but innovation comes with a bright spark, with an idea, with someone making an innocent statement like, "Wow, if only, this was the case."
Yeah.
And the courage as a team to embrace that curveball. And to build something around it. So it can be a virtual studio, it can be a virtual meeting place, it could be something different, in due course. We don't know. Because the most beautiful thing about this industry, it is dynamic, it's ever changing.
Right.
And that's the most beautiful thing, also most scary thing, which means that the biggest skill set that we all must have as an industry is the ability to be courageous and be open and to try new things.
Right. Actually, they do say that in creative workshops, when you're discussing stuff, right, they always encourage people to start sentences with "if only," "what if,"
Yep.
and just a very simple word "and."
Yep.
And that's how you build on ideas. Okay.
Yep.
So let's go to one word to describe 2022.
Hope.
Hope. Okay. Seems like everybody's counting on hope right now.
Yes.
Okay. And when we have a similar event at the end of this year, at the end of 2022, what do you think we'll be talking about? Will we be talking about metaverse, or what do you think? Omnichannel again?
Well, I think metaverse will definitely be part of the conversation, because the biggest companies around the world have put their efforts, and research behind metaverse. How can the metaverse be used in industry? It's probably something that a conference like WIT, that delivers cutting edge content and dialogue on technology within our space. That's something that is perfect, tailor made for you to start the conversation. And of course, definitely looking back at the journey that we all been through.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to go to there are a couple of questions for you. Do you foresee building virtual venues becoming the norm for event venues around the world now?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. What equipment is needed for an off-site speaker, for example, overseas, to optimize or create a holographic presence for the show?
If you need a holographic presence, you need to have the right protocols. Technically speaking, you only need a camera. But if you broadcast a hologram from other parts of the world into Singapore without a dedicated line, there can be latency. Think of a simple news channel, for example. Look at news, and then the news reporter asks, the anchor asks her colleague, who is somewhere in the States, what do you think and what do you see? And the guy stands in front of the camera, pauses for a while, looks in the eye, in the sky, and says, yes, and he replies. So if you don't have right technology, it causes that latency. So we worked with we happened to chance upon, I think the word chance upon, a solution called Art Media. Art Media is one of our partners, and they're independent run company who started in Hollywood actually, and they are experts in long distance, low latency, holographic presence transfer. So we work with them extensively.
Okay, it's great to have this new tool. So I know that one best practice for virtual events is to actually finish on time, but we are running behind. But the conversation is so riveting and interesting that I don't want to end it just yet. We're going to end up soon. But we had a poll, so I'm curious about your answer. Poll number 3, what will you do to become more creative in the new year? 1, read more. B, attend more events like this. Or C, keep an open mind.
C, keep an open mind and listen.
All right. So we had 20% saying attend more events like this, which is not bad, right? And then the rest is saying keep an open mind. Okay. Poll number 4 was what quality will be most needed to get through 2022? One word that you use a lot: courage, empathy, stamina.
Stamina, yeah.
Stamina, right?
Stamina.
Okay, so the audience agrees with you. Like 42% says stamina. Forget about empathy. We've had enough of that. Let's get on and run the race. Okay. So one last poll before we wrap up, and I'm gonna ask women the same question. How optimistic are you about getting through 2022? So to the audience out there, how optimistic are you? A, more determined than ever. B, still uncertain, who knows what could happen. C, just have to face whatever comes with creativity and resilience. Women, do you have another answer other than what I've offered?
Quietly confident, I think that's the word.
Quietly confident, I like that. Okay. All right. So you know what we're going to do is we're going to end with on a collaborative note, right? Because creativity is collaborative. It's about asking those questions like if only, what if, and. So you've heard our speaker share their word for 2022. Women's word was hope. And then we had words like ascendant. We had words like stay positive. So can you all make that chat explode with your word for 2022? And what we're going to do is we're going to collect your words and we're going to create a word cloud at the season finale, a cloud that will capture all our hopes and aspirations for the new year. So guys, please make that chat explode. My word for 2022 is free. To be free. So when is your next trip?
4th of January.
And where are you off to?
I'm going to the States. I'm going to Confiding Leaders in Vegas.
Fantastic. And there'll be a physical event in Las Vegas.
Yes, with a very, very strong digital component as well.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to watching that show.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be online. It will be a hybrid event. And we wish women a wonderful trip to Las Vegas, and he can catch all the shows that he wants. Las Vegas in January. That's a dream. Well,
Right.
Thank you so much for being our final speaker for our season finale. It's been a fantastic conversation as always. I look forward to doing more magic with you next year.
Sure.
Right. So thank you to you, our audience, and the entire cast of speakers for making this season finale rock happen, and hope to see you all physically next year. Thank you for joining us.